Hey guys, it's Kyle from Regrettable Props, and today we're going to be working on the arms for the Lawbringer from the game For Honor. And to print out the templates, if you do purchase them or decide to, you'll be having a PDF. You'll be selecting poster when you do so, and you can change it to be landscape or portrait, and then include the print marks so you know where to cut. And you're just going to lay them out, cut off that excess pieces of paper, and then tape it all together, and you'll have something looking like this. And then once you have them all taped together, you're going to want to cut out the pieces you want to be cutting out. So obviously we're going to be cutting out the pieces for the arms. Right now we're cutting out the pieces for the elbow. Want to make sure you flip those left and right side templates. That way you have them for both halves of your elbow piece, and make sure you cut out or you trace out two of them because you obviously have two elbows. So on those pieces there will be the correct angles you need to cut for each side. So for these parts of the elbow, they're going to be 45-degree part on one half of that piece, and everywhere else is going to have 90-degree cuts. Once you have that done, this is what you're going to be looking like for having one elbow piece. We're going to add a V groove to these outside pieces that flare out, so we're just going to fold it in half along that dotted line, and then we're just going to trace it there, and we're going to do a V groove on the top, so cutting it 45 degrees one way and 45 from the other, but not all the way through, so that way we have a little trench, and then we can fold it together to have it bent into shape. You can obviously heat form if you want, but I think this would work a little bit better. And we decide to heat form those pieces before gluing them together to make it easier for gluing them, since the foam would be more likely to stay in shape. Slowly working along and gluing those edges together down that middle section. This was my first mess up when I was recording. I didn't account for one section, so the inside portion of this outer piece for the elbow, there needs to be a 45-degree cut inward. That part is already included on the template, so you don't have to make the same mistake as I do while you're following this video tutorial. And once I fix that correction, we're going to glue the dome into the outer trim piece, tacking it down on one side and working it along to get it into shape. Once you've done that, we're going moving on to the parts where we added the V groove. So you're just going to add some hot glue into that trench and hold it together until it's cooled and rested in shape. Once those pieces have cooled and glued together, you're going to want to tack them onto the sides of the dome so you can see where they're going to be being right here on screen, and you just want to make sure you do that for both halves. Once you have all those pieces glued together, this is what it's going to be looking like. There's some additional lines on the template where you're going to be adding some grooves with your dremel, so I already know where those are, so I'm just going to be marking them in with a Sharpie, just showing you where they are. On the templates, you're going to be doing them on both sides, and there's some additional circles where we're going to be adding some googly eyes to be acting as faux rivets. Now we're going to be moving on to the bicep portion of the arms. This part is a very simple two-piece build for obviously both arms. You're going to just want to trace this out twice, so you have one for your left and your right. And then we're going to use it on 5mm craft foam or 10mm, it's up to your choosing, or whatever you have. Obviously, if you have 6mm foam or something close to that, it will work. And you're just going to stack it on top. So depending on the length of your bicep, you want to make these pieces a little bit stacked more so on top, or have them more spread out, if that makes sense. So it fits about 3/4 of your bicep. And onto the forearms, we're just going to have the one half of the template, trace it out for one side, and then flip it over, and then you're going to need to repeat this twice for the bicep. To add this additional marking for where we're going to be doing the dremeling for the trim, you're just going to cut out that inner piece and then trace it onto the template that we've already drawn out. Once you've cut out the forearm pieces, we're just going to use a heat gun or a broil setting on a toaster oven to give them a bit of shape to fit the contour of your arm. If these forearm pieces are not wide enough, you can obviously elongate the width by either reprinting the templates in the PDF format, or by tracing them out and adding additional section to the paper template before you trace it out into the foam. We're working on the wrist guard now. All the templates are going to be there and indicating which sides need to have additional 45-degree cuts. Some of them do for the middle and only on one side, and you're just going to stack them like such on screen so that way you know how to put them all together. Some additional lines were added onto the wrist guard piece to mark out where we want to add those additional dremeling lines and some circles for where we're adding some more faux rivets. I'm using a coned grinding bit to add those outer lines on all the pieces and using a sanding bit to round the corners of the foam. That way it doesn't appear cartoonish. You can obviously add additional battle damage if you so choose. If you don't have a cone grinding bit, you can very carefully try and use a sanding bit. I did that for this one to show that it is possible, but for the rest you want to be careful and wear face protection, dust mask, at least eyeglasses or safety glasses. You don't want pieces of foam and hot glue or the sanding bits flying off at your eyes. To fill in the seams, we're going to be using quick seal on all the seams that we want filled on all the parts. So you're going to use quick seal, use some water to help smear it in. You want to wait till it's fully cured and see if you need an additional coat. The drying time will depend if you use a hair dryer on it or not, which can speed up the process. If not, it may take a few hours, and also depending on how thick you applied that first layer or additional layers afterwards. And we're going to be adding some additional details by adding some googly eyes as faux rivets. I used the smaller ones for these pieces, just using some hot glue or super glue to get them into place. Once that's done for all the pieces, you're going to want to cover them in a coat of Modge Podge. I added black so that way it was a nice base for the metallic paints and it gets the colors all uniform. You may choose add strapping now. I'm using black webbing, or in the future, which I'll be changing, I added some faux leather or vinyl, and you're going to be wanting to do this for the bicep and the elbow piece, and the forearm is going to be something we'll be tackling a little bit on later in the end of the video. Now we're going to be adding the same metallic base coat that we used in the poleaxe head. If not, I'd make a huge batch of the paint that you want to make as your main base coat. That's going to be applied to all your armor pieces. That way you have the same color throughout them all. So we applied the base coat of that darker metallic color, and then I lightly applied a dry brushing lighter coat of metal to add some inconsistencies to it. Here you can see the difference between the two. I used a wide cheap brush when applying that metallic coat that was lighter to kind of highlight some of the edges and to add some inconsistencies to the metallic color. Afterwards, I added a wash of black and brown paints that were mixed together, very thinly applied all over the armor pieces, and then used a paper towel to dab or wipe it off, removing as much as I felt like I needed to add a well-worn appearance. For the wrist guard piece and the gloves, I used a old gardening glove that was leather, and I cut out some cardstock and to fit and cover the knuckles and just paint the same metallic piece. You could use some Warbler or some 2mm foam. I just used the paper and cardstock painted, so it was just convenient to what I was using, but it's not the best appearance, but it might not be seen as much on your piece. For the strapping of the forearm and the rest of the pieces, I ended up using leather from an old piece of clothing that was going to get thrown out or donated. So I cut it out in strips that were about 1/2 inch wide and the width that I needed so I could fit this comfortably on my arm and to be able to take it on and off. I used some larger googly eyes to act as faux rivets, and I painted them the same metallic base color. And for the other forearm piece, I added some additional layers, wrapping it around many more times. And here you can see I'm just changing out the other strapping pieces for the rest of the armor pieces that we have made in the beginning of this video. And to cover the pieces and to give an additional shine to the metallic look, I used a Rust-oleum clear gloss finish 2x ultra covered. Once again, materials that were used within the video are mentioned in the description, as well as a link to where to purchase the templates if you so choose to follow along. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up. If not, hit the dislike. My name's been Kyle from Regrettable Props. I hope you guys stay tuned and subscribe for more tutorials on cosplay. If not, hope you guys have a good day. Bye.